Elastica are a four-piece British rock band who almost when they formed just a few short years ago were touted as the next big thing. After four attention-grabbing, short, sharp shock singles, they released their self-titled debut album, and for most observers, the hype was justified. Elastica are at the forefront of a bunch of British bands like Blur, Oasis, Suede, Pulp, and maybe a few others who have successfully revitalised the British pop music scene. Well, OK, Justine, what's the state of play with Elastica now that Annie is gone?
Well, obviously we're going to need to find another bass player to work with, but we're not sure whether it's going to be a sort of full-time member or we're going to work with different people for sort of different albums or... I mean, we're pretty open about it, we're just seeing who's out there, really.
We knew she was tired of touring. Like, when we got back from the last... We got back... I can't remember where we went, actually. Japan, that's it. We went to Japan. We've been touring for months and months and months, you know, like Europe and America. Got back from Japan and she was sort of saying, look, I can't keep touring like this. And we were like, OK, well, this is going to be it now. And we were all quite happy to be home. And then 2 days later, we had a call from America saying, do you want to, you know, join the Lollapalooza? It was such a good slot that we had in the middle of the afternoon. We couldn't really refuse it. And all of us thought, OK, we'll go back for another month. We'd only had 2 days off. So I went straight back. But halfway through, Annie was just like, I just can't keep doing this, you know, it's just we'd actually flown from America straight to Heathrow, to go from Heathrow to T in the Park in Scotland, played the gig in Scotland, went straight to Ireland, then played the gig in Ireland, then the next morning we had to fly straight back to carry on with the Lollapalooza. Yeah. So it was just, we were just physically worn out, really.
But do you think in some ways that it was the four of you against the world, if you like? Now 1/4 of that is gone. Could it be four again, do you think, or is it only the time will tell?
Yeah, only time will tell. I think it could be, you know, I think it's just for people wanting to make something work. That's what it's about, really.
Do you ever feel in some ways that Elastica have had it either very easy or even possibly too easy? I mean, from the word go, Elastica were a big name.
Well, I think we all sort of felt like we paid our dues in other bands, really, and we've all played in front of sort of one man and his dog for years. I think that we definitely had it easy in the sense that we didn't have to play gigs to nobody and stuff like that. But in many ways that makes it harder because you're under pressure from the beginning. And we've had to grow up very much in the spotlight. We had to write our first album with the kind of media attention on us. And a lot of bands have the luxury of writing a first album before anyone's interested in them.
I think when we were doing the album, really, we knew we were working on songs and everyone was sort of watching us and waiting for the album. It's quite nice getting it out because then you could say, this is what we've been doing all year. I mean, because we did sort of back off from the press for quite a while. It seemed like quite a while for us, you know. We were working hard and writing songs. And it was nice getting it out because then people, you know, sort of, you've got something to show for all the things you've been, you know, all the stuff you've been working on all year.
And we've had to kind of fight to do things at our own pace.
Well, do you feel in some ways that there's a slight correlation where you could see something happening in between when you were, say, a member of Suede to Elastica really making something, that you could see what was happening to them? And what happened to them was like massive publicity all over the place. The cover of 19 different magazines in the space of whatever months before there's even an album out, and the Drowner single was probably the only thing they had. Do you feel in some ways that you were able to sometimes learn from that? If you do get a big, huge push at the beginning, retreat every so often?
Well, I mean, I've always had a problem with the press in the sense that we've always sort of fought to try and kind of contain the thing, and it's really hard to do that. You know, our press office thinks we're insane because we're just constantly saying no to everything. We were certainly aware that extreme media coverage on a young band is not necessarily a very healthy thing. And I think, you know, we're going to be doing the same retreat again because we just feel like we have to work at our own pace, really, and I just can't get on the hamster wheel that a lot of other bands sort of feel comfortable on. I just can't handle that kind of constant singles and touring and pressure. You know, I mean, we've worked really hard this year, but we could have sort of put out more singles in this country and tried to carry the thing on, but we just felt like, you know, what's the point? There's loads of people that are aware of Elastica, and either the next single will be good or it won't, and if it's good, people will respond to it. You know, I've definitely got faith in people responding to things if they're worth responding to. So I don't really see the point of constantly keeping up a high profile.
But if you just go back, say, 4 or 5 years, I mean, you were studying architecture at college and you met Brett from Suede, and like you were in with him in a band. If you were prepared to give up the studies of something that you obviously really wanted to do, why did you not want to stay in a band like that? I mean, if it was such a big decision, why suddenly say to hell with this and leave your friend Brett?
Well, it was more complicated than that, really. But you know, I wasn't really writing for Suede, and I just found it a bit frustrating, really. And I really just thought they'll be better off without me, and they were, because I had different opinions about where the music should go, and it was a real case of too many cooks spoiling the broth. And you know, I just felt kind of disillusioned with the whole music industry, and even at that early stage, I just felt like what they were doing was good and had been for a while, and there was so little response to it. And I just thought, to hell with it, I'm going to go and do something else. And then, I suppose, when they started doing well, my belief in the music industry kind of came back a little bit, because I just thought, well, you know, maybe there is that thing that if you just keep persevering, it will work out. And I really missed being in a band, so I kind of thought, well, maybe I'll try and do my own thing.
Okay, well then, like, the fact that you went on to do your own thing, I mean, did you find in some ways that Elastica may just even be 1/10 a reaction to what Suede had been, which was getting a bit long and boring, and Bernard with his guitar solos, etc. I mean, like, there's 16 short, sharp shocks in some ways on the Elastica album, and there's, let's say, 12.
Yeah.
So was that a reaction in some ways even to that? Like, this is what you wanted to do as opposed to this long business?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, your whole life is sort of constantly reacting to what you've just done. And, you know, I was in Suede for 3 years, and I was tired of that kind of approach to songwriting. So, obviously, in some sense, you know, what we were doing at first was a reaction.
When you go into the studio with the songs that you've written, do you have anything in mind other than just wanting to get those songs out? Do you have a sort of a thing of, no, this has to be perfect, pristine, 2.5 minutes? And like, that you can't have, like, long, boring guitar solos, you can't do...
There's no real rules, but I think you have a fixed idea in your head of how you want the song to sound at the beginning, and when you know, is its progressiveness, like, you can hear what's happening with it. We don't rule out, oh, we're not going to have this and we are going to have that. But you've definitely got a general idea and a pattern that you follow in the way of putting the song together.
Do you ever think consciously of, I want to keep the raw and garage sound, but I want to make listenable pop for the 90s as well? Try and get that marriage right, and that's 100% success for Elastica.
I don't think we ever sort of really think about it. We just know if something sounds okay to us. We know if something is kind of satisfying that thing of wanting stuff to sound hard and good, but also, you know, to have a melody that is memorable, you know, and it's just something that either works or it doesn't.
But, like, are you consciously aware of the fact that you do sound like other bands, say, between 79 and 81?
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's partly because, you know, we made our first album, and you're kind of practicing on your first album, and you're learning to write songs by sitting and listening to other people's songs, and kind of working out what it is that you like, and kind of putting your own thing on top of that. You know, and I think that's kind of normal, really. I think the whole sort of plagiarism thing with us has been really, really overplayed, because there's lots of bands that borrow quite heavily from other people's sort of songs and make something else that's new. But I think, you know, however you can produce music, you should just go for it. I mean, we're producing music because it's a joy, not because, you know, we're trying to make clever cultural statements. And I think that, you know, people have to sort of let you just kind of do what it is you enjoy, and if they like it, that's fine. I think there's far too much sort of talk about music, really.
Well, do you think, in other words, then, that it doesn't matter, that, like, it's not a question of, like, it ain't what you do, it's the way that you...
Exactly, exactly.